Hello and welcome to this very special episode of the 5 Minute Call.
We've taken over the rehearsal space for the London Palladium's Robin Hood to bring you this incredibly special Christmas episode.
The cast and crew are hard at work around us, so we're super grateful and incredibly lucky to sit down with none other than Charlie Stemp.
Charlie is one of musical theatre's brightest stars. From his award-winning role as Arthur Kipps in Half a Sixpence to his Broadway debut in Hello, Dolly.
Charlie has established himself as a leading man on both sides of the Atlantic. Charlie has also captivated audiences as Bert in the West End's Mary Poppins, dazzled in Crazy for You, and delighted families in the London Palladium pantomimes over the years.
Charlie has also won a What's on Stage and Theatre World Award and is a serial Laurence Olivier Award nominee.
Charlie, thank you for being with us. We are so delighted. We've tried so long to get you on the podcast.
We have been. We've been back and forth for quite some time, haven't we?
It's like large gaps between our responses.
Yeah, both. It's always lovely, isn't it? Because you always get the message, I'm so sorry, I've been so busy, but it's such a relief when I get a message back from you going, I'm so sorry, I'm so busy. So I'm glad we can make it work.
Thank you so much for being here with us.
Of course.
We are absolutely intrigued and excited to hear about your story.
Wonderful.
Will you tell us how you get to be sitting here in this rehearsal space? Like, where does it start?
Oh, that's a big question. A really good question, I guess. My instinct is to say that I have always been a show-off. So the reason I'm in this room is because I am now a professional show-off. I think is the reason I'm in this room. But we're definitely in this room because I'm in rehearsals here, which is wonderful. So we are in Gerwood Space, and I'm rehearsing for pantomime at the London Palladium, which is Robin Hood. And we are here because I wasn't able to come to you, so I said, come here. And now we're,
Which is, we're on location.
Yeah,
we're
on
location.
location.
Which is great.
It's very
Actually,
exciting.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
If you can see
really
through
cool.
your guys' camera, you can actually see the dancer statue that we've put Christmas decorations on, which is
There he is.
joyous.
So where did performing come from for you? Did you always want to do it?
I think I always did it in some form or another. Definitely it came from a divorced family and wanting more attention than I probably needed, but just wanted more. And that's never a negative, I don't think, because actually it was always just for me about trying to make people happy, trying to make people laugh. And I think when I was younger, I had far too much energy. Dancing was just another outlet. And it started with dancing. My family have some history of Amdram and acting. My nan was an acting coach and is now retired. My auntie does Amdram all the time, and every year I get messages saying, please come to watch my panto or the various Shakespeare plays she's done. And I never get to have time because I'm always in shows and doing things. But so my family have that side. But when I was 11, I wasn't doing well in school. I was struggling with the idea of being in a big school of nearly 3,000 kids. So my mum said, we're going to take you out of that school and we're going to put you in a theatre school. And at first it was just a way to get me out. It was a short-term fix. And I loved it. I fell in love with it, I think. I fell in love with the people, how loud they are, how rude they can be, how joyously energetic. And I found a place, I think, where I could be the closest version to myself that I had at that point, which is wonderful. Yeah, so it started there and then progressed to the person I am now.
Was it you that said, I want to go do dancing, or was that just in the family and somebody suggested?
It was my mother, and it was just another way for me to burn the far too much energy that I had. So I was doing football, judo, rugby. I was doing all of the sports all at once. And dancing was just another way for my mum to burn off as much energy as she could. And then I was about 14 and I was in the Great Britain squad for judo. I was trying to get into the Kent squad for rugby, and I was dancing for my local dance school, and it was a full-time school as well. So it was in Eltham. It was above an Argos in Eltham. It was called Belcanto London
I know
Academy.
exactly where you are.
Yeah.
Yep.
Fortunately, it's closed down. But at the time, I went into a ballet class with a broken arm from a judo competition, and my ballet teacher just lost it. She said, "Last week you had a broken nose. A couple of weeks ago, you had broken fingers and broken toes. You can't do this anymore. You need to choose. You need to choose which one it was." And I remember, through no shame, I remember looking around the room, all the lovely girls in ballet tights, and going, "I'm going to stay here. This is definitely where I want to be. I think this is a wonderful place to be." And all of my friends were around the area, and I didn't really have any friends that weren't included in dance. And that was definitely where I wanted to be, and found my happy place.
So that being the only boy in the class never bothered you?
No, not at all. It was great. It meant you got more attention from the teacher, from everyone else. And I've always found myself, especially at that point, I found myself, most of my friends were women anyway, because I have a very strong, heavy female part of my life and my family. And it's just been a joy. I mean, when you're younger, it's tricky. Being a young male dancer was hard. Getting on a bus with dance clothes is always something that you have to work with. I did Elton Lights once, so that's like turning on the lights in Elton. And I was doing a dance routine on the stage. I remember kids shouting at me and being like, just throwing words and being so angry. But what was wonderful was I wasn't embarrassed. I was just angry that someone else didn't understand what was such a wonderful and hard thing for me to do. One of the first conversations I had with my dad was like, "Do you really want to be dancing?" And I said, "Dad, you need to come to this dance class. It's harder than judo. It's harder than football. It's harder than rugby." and everyone's really great. I love it. So yeah, that was definitely one for me.
It's very cool, because I do think going through the teen
Yeah,
years.
I was going to say, it's such a thing to realise early on, and to have those comments come at you.
Yeah.
Yes, of course you're going to be angry, but to spin that into something that's empowering and fueling for you to carry on, I think is such a special thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And so much of it is just was, and I don't think it's as much now, which is wonderful, but definitely back then it was just a case of the unknown. Kids at the back of a bus, it would just be unknown. It would be about your sexual preference, which was fearful for so many kids at that point, was, the idea to be either gay or something that was different that's just wrong. So me to be a dancer was considered something that was unknown, and that was wrong. And then really what would happen is there would be a moment where those kids would then see me on a stage and be like, "Oh, we didn't realize you did it like this. This is, amazing." So I remember getting a message from a boy who I went to school with, who didn't tease me, but he made me uncomfortable with his view of my life. And he would message me and be like, can I get tickets to see your show? I think you're wonderful. I think it's amazing what you do."
Well,
and it's amazing, isn't it? Yeah. And he said, "Oh, can you get me," such a pride moment, he said, "Can you get me discounted tickets to your show?" And I responded saying, "Sorry, I only get discounted tickets for my friends."
Yes.
Burn.
Yeah.
Absolute burn moment. Yeah, burn moment.
That's a nice full cycle moment.
It was.
You're looking at that now with an adult's eyes and talking about, it was unknown and it was different. Do you think you saw that then, or did you just enjoy it so much that you could chuck that energy off?
I think I really enjoyed the space where I felt exhausted, and I felt that gave me such a sense of calm, having lots of energy. And full disclosure, I've never been diagnosed, but I definitely have a lot of ADHD tendencies. And growing up with as much energy as I've had, actually the moments that I look back and realize I had the most amount of peace was when I was tired, when I was really tired, and I didn't have the energy to overthink or to stress or to be anxious or to be very, very happy or very, very sad. I could just be really content and really kind of calm. So dancing definitely gave me that, and it gave me a real structure with my teachers were very strict, but I loved that. I would like being told if I'm doing something wrong, why I'm doing something wrong. Because especially when I was younger, I didn't understand. I think that was a big thing. I didn't understand why people would be angry at me or what was going on. So that, I think, now looking back, is what I've gained from that. Yeah.
So at theatre school, you also had presumably drama and singing as well?
Well, yeah, I did, but not as much. At first, it was a predominantly dance school, and we did a little bit of singing, but it was never really my thing. And then when that school closed down, I went to another school where I had my first ever singing teacher, and I had singing lessons, and that was only because I knew I wanted to go to theatre college, and I had to. But because I was the only boy at the college, they then wanted me to do singing and wanted me to do the lead roles in the musicals that they did. But I always felt a sense that I shouldn't be there, but I was only there because of a lack of somebody else, which I now look back at it and realize that was the wrong way to view it. But in my youth, I didn't realize that. So we had a production we did at the end of the year, and we did Joseph's Technicolor Dreamcoat, but we just did a few numbers. And my teacher said, "You're going to be Joseph, and you're going to sing Close Every Door. And we're not going to change the key," probably because he didn't know how to change the key. And he said, "You'll be fine. You'll be fine. You'll be fine." And I got on stage to do it, and I remember this moment of going to hit the note and just not having the technique or understanding of how to do it. My voice was probably still breaking. I was 15, hadn't fully understood it, and I cracked so badly. And it stayed with me for such a long time. And even to this day, probably high notes have that fear. As soon as you've cracked big time, you always have that moment, don't you? That moment where it just sticks. And that was the moment for me. And it stayed with me for a long time. So when I then went to college, I had this fear of it that I now realize it prevents you from being what everybody wants to see. Is actually you act through this song and be a part of it. And a high note is just one tiny little moment. Actually, what I want to do, so I'm touching on something else, is actually to thank you, because Claire has and is my singing teacher, has been for a very long time. And my first lesson with you, or probably second or third actually, I didn't really do much in the way of singing, apart from singing at college. I did a fair bit, but always kind of felt that it was something I had to get through to get jobs. And then I went into one of the lessons with you, and you said, "What are you going to sing today?" You won't remember this, but you said, "What are you going to sing today?" And I said, I want to sing It's Hard to Speak My Heart from Parade. And we got through the song, and you turned to me and you said, "That is the best I've ever heard that song." And I was like, it absolutely blew me away, because it was the first time that anyone had ever said to me, this is what you can do. So it gave me a real confidence. So thank you.
Oh, you are so really welcome. Did. You are so welcome.
So special.
Because I just thought you just had to be an unbelievably naturally gifted singer to be someone that can entertain someone through a song. And I now know that that's not true. You have to tell a story.
You have to tell a story.
Yeah.
I'm actually really curious. Do you remember saying that?
No.
No, but that's what I mean.
So this is what I was going to then say, because I knew the answer would be no, because you see hundreds and hundreds of people, but that's the impact you have on somebody else.
All right, you stop that. No to him. I do remember us meeting. I don't remember the specifics of that. I remember the sunshine in the room is what I remember. And that's what I always associate you with, because you've always come to everything, even when there were vocal challenges, with a smile and an open mind and, okay, let's see what can be done about this. And that is the best environment to learn in. It's just, and it's the easiest environment to teach in as well, because you haven't got to kind of get through the defences, which was always very evident. But we're skipping a bit, because that was on Wicked, right?
That was, yeah. So we've
skipped a few years. How did we get to Wicked from school?
I went to theatre college, which is a massive part of my life. I know a lot of people have different experiences from college, but mine is only wonderful things. Even the lessons I learned and the things that were wrong. that wrong's the wrong word, that the challenges I faced and the lessons I learned. And in my third year of college, I wanted to be a dancer. It was only ever dancing. I liked acting, but the college didn't push it. I didn't have a massive desire to do that. TV and film has never been something that's massively interested me. And then I injured myself in my third year. I tore my meniscus in my knee and I was out for 6 months. And my ballet teacher said she would not have someone who looked so sad in her ballet classes at the front. Because normally you have to watch everyone. It was destroying me watching everyone dance and me just kind of sat there, writing notes about pliés. I was given some leeway to go to any classes that I want. And Lawrence, who was my singing tutor through college and is a good friend of mine, took me into any singing class that I wanted to do. So my singing went from being something that was maybe just about passable to something that was, I would say, strong enough to be able to confidently go into most auditions with 3 or 4 songs. I was able to give a good account of myself. And that left me in good enough stead to be able to leave knowing that I wanted to learn more about singing. I wanted to find out more and I wanted to know how to make people feel things through song. So 2 months before we finished college, I went in for 3 or 4 auditions. One of them my first one was for Mamma Mia. And that was before we had, I'm jumping ahead here slightly, by the way. My first audition for Mamma Mia, I absolutely botched it, did a terrible job. I decided in the moment I was going to learn a new song, Build Me Up Buttercup, which I'd never played by a piano, but I went, I know this song, I listen to it all the time on the radio, I'll be absolutely fine. I'll go in the room, it will be great. Got in there and he went, bum, 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 and I was like, where's my note? What's going on? Everyone looked at me and I did a terrible job. And the feedback I got was, Charlie's tone deaf and we don't think he should come back again. So that was my first ever audition. My new agent kind of told me about it and he was like, are you tone deaf? Because I've seen you on stage and you're not, but we need to work on this. And that was when he recommended I go to classes and do the lessons with you. But what is so funny is the first audition I got and the first job I got after we had our lessons when I was doing Wicked was Mamma Mia, and I got the job, which is like, hilarious. You can kind of go back and do that. But after that very, very bad audition, I put myself together and auditioned for Wicked and did a year in town. It was my first job. Very fun.
As a monkey climbing up and down the...
Monkey number 3, the ensemble. I got offered... I won't disclose which, but I got offered after Wicked, very famous TV, long-running TV show, I'll let you guess which one it is, to play a leading role. And my agent said, don't worry about Wicked, you'll be fine, you can do this. And I said, no, I'm not. She said, what do you mean? I said, well, I've given my word to Wicked that I'm going to do this job, so I'm going to do this job. And he was incensed. He was like, what are you talking about? He was like, this industry, it's not about giving your word. And I was like, no, this is what I want to do. This is what I said I'll do. I'm going to do a year in Wicked. And he said, if you take this job, you can do a year in Wicked. You could do a year on this TV show, and then you can come back to Wicked as a Fiero, and we can add a 0 on the end of whatever you're being paid. So this is your path. I remember just going, no, it's not. I'm so sorry, but I don't want to do that.
Incredible presence of mind.
Yeah.
Where does that come from?
And what's ridiculous, I would tell every person who'd been offered that job to take it. Yeah. And I would say no myself. But I think even at that point, and my mantra has always been, very rarely are we paid very much for this job. Sometimes you are, and it's wonderful, but the main reason we get into it is because you love it. And that needs to stay. Of course, there are moments where you have to take jobs that you don't want to do, or there will be moments where you have to go in when you're not passionate. It's not about being passionate all the time. It's always following the pursuit of what you love or your passion. And I looked at it, and I looked at this long-running TV show that would have been really fun to do, and I just went, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be a part of that. I want to be in the West End. I want to dance. I want to be part of this company of people, and I want to be a monkey. I want to be a monkey. So yeah, I'm glad I made that decision.
It's one of our favourite moments, isn't it? We love a sliding doors moment on this podcast.
I think there's 2 sliding doors moments, actually. One that we sort of bumped over, which was when you got your injury. So we're going back a bit, but the question I had, it's been stuck in here, but I didn't want to interrupt you, is do you think all of the other stuff would have happened? So learning to sing and you know, properly go to Claire and that kind of thing. Would that have happened if you got your injury, or would you still be dancing?
No, not at all. I don't think it would have happened. I don't think I would have even got the audition for Wicked, because I learned to sing. What did I sing for that job? The Devil You Know from Sideshow. I didn't have that in my rep. The only song I had in my rep was I Won't Send Roses, which is the only song I had in my rep. And I had one song, and that was it. And I got 3 more. And then those are the 3 songs that I've used my entire career. I've never learned anything else from auditions.
That's fair. You get a song, you stick with it.
Maybe don't take this as, you know, don't do that.
I don't know. It's pretty good. I'm always telling people, like, bring this down. Let's have like 5 numbers that we can change for whatever we need to do. So it's not bad.
Yeah,
good.
Fair.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
To have the songs that you can do so well, inside out, back to front, in your sleep, versus, and you know, obviously have a couple of things that you can challenge, but those safety songs, that's going to save you.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's incredible to have those 2 distinct moments, to know that you wouldn't have done anything that you have done currently had you not had that injury.
Absolutely.
Which is a really weird kind of blessing, curse kind of situation.
Well, I think that's it. There are so many moments as a young adult where at the time you think this couldn't get any worse. And, you know, and actually it's the making of you and you don't realize it at the time. And that was definitely one of those moments where you go, you know, this everything will be okay, but I just can't see it yet, and everything's going to be okay. And it did. If I didn't get that, I wouldn't have got that. If, you know, and there are so many of those moments, but those are the ones that stick out for sure.
This episode is sponsored by Vocalitea, a specially formulated blend of tea for professional voice users. Each ingredient has been carefully selected to help you soothe and take care of your voice. The tea is naturally caffeine-free, suitable for vegans, and does not contain any artificial flavours or colours. Vocalitea is the secret to vocal clarity in a cup. So, we get to Wicked, and we're being a monkey.
Yes.
And we're working on singing.
Yeah.
Did we have fun on Wicked? Did you have fun on Wicked? I had a lot of fun.
I had loads of fun. It's a great first job to do because there is a lot of structure in the show and in the building. There is for a show that is so free with its dancing, it has such a clear vision and pride of that vision that you need to stand exactly where they say. You need to do these moves in a precise way. You need to have a real focus in certain areas on certain things. I have never been someone that is described as having focus. So it was really helpful for me to realize in a very kind way from the people in the building that the way that I perceived things wasn't always right, or the way that I acted wasn't always well. So that sounds bad. That sounds like I'm, you know, somehow was really naughty. It wasn't that I was naughty. It's just that I didn't know. When it's your first job, you don't know anything. But I think I wanted to show everybody that I did. And what would happen is everyone would just laugh at me all the time and be like, "Oh, Charlie." I was 19. You know, I was 19.
I was just going to ask you how old you were.
Yeah, I was 19. I was the youngest person that had been in the cast for a while. And everyone just took me under my wing. One of my best friends was in the show, Will, who on my first day, I was so excited and nervous and all these other emotions that I completely forgot to bring my warm-up gear. So he gave me his warm-up gear and went to warm up in his own jeans and got in trouble and didn't tell anyone. And I just remember being like, what a great guy. And he didn't say anything.
That's a proper friend.
That's a proper friend. Yeah. I was best man at his wedding, you know, so these things come around. And so I had a really special time in that job. I hold it very close to my heart. Dancing in that way, you don't get it in any other show. It's just so joyous. As someone that really enjoyed contemporary dancing, it's just so free and it's so wonderful. So I enjoyed it immensely, and I enjoyed the sense of confidence that it gave me in being someone at such a young age that was someone who was a West End performer, and that gave me a real confidence. But it actually also gave me the view that, it's a job, and that may sound like it's a negative, but actually all jobs are just jobs, and there are positives and negatives. And at that point in my life, actually, I just wanted to travel. I just wanted to go and explore and see things. So I remember having a cool chat with my agent and saying, "This is great, but I want to go away. I want to travel." And I feel like worried that if my trajectory continues on this way, that actually going away is not always the best. Someone had said to me once, well, if you're not in a West End show, no one's going to notice you, so you won't get any jobs. I now realize how silly that is. If you're the best person for the job, you're the best person for the job. It really doesn't matter. But he said, we'll see what we can do. And then Mamma Mia came along, and that was my international tour debut. And I traveled the world for a year and a half and had the best time getting tanned up. We only used to tan the front of our bodies. We never used to tan the back because you never faced the back. So we'd be orange in the front and completely pale in the back. And you'd have very orange fingers from all the fake tan, and you'd get complaints in every hotel you went in because the sheets would just be a mess. It was wonderful. And everyone was very young. So I went from having predominantly on the West End, everyone's normally a lot older, a lot more mature. People finish the show and go home. Whereas on tour, you're so close together, aren't you? You guys all know. Yeah. You're so close that you spend an obscene amount of time together. So drinking and going out is just something that's a very part of the culture. And we did. And we were so young, we loved it. And then that was a year and a half. And then I finished that. And I did a course in being an aerobics instructor because I was like, well, I'm back to London. I don't have a job lined up. I'd turned down a few things. Another pivotal moment, I got offered Charlie and the Chocolate Factory as third cover reporter. I wasn't going to get a fee for the cover. I wasn't going to get a fee, but I was expected to be at cover rehearsals, which is mad, isn't it?
That is mad.
That's mad.
Yeah.
Mental.
I nearly took it. And my agent said, don't, because I promise you something's come along. Yeah. I can't tell you what it is, but something's going to come along and it's going to be the making of you. And 2 weeks after that, when I got home, I auditioned for half Sixpence. And I think it really was the making of me in a professional sense. It really was this big leap in my career.
Big sliding doors.
It is a big sliding doors moment. I've got lots of sliding doors, haven't I?
You've also got an incredibly supportive agent.
I do, yeah. My agent's name is Bert. I love him very dearly. He is like my father. He is a whirlwind of a human being in many ways. And I love him for it. He has been a real rock to me in moments of stress during the shows. And I think I'm very rare to have that with my agent, and not everybody does. And so many stories I could tell you about him, but I think that the one that I hold very close to my heart is the conversation he had with my dad when he first signed me. He said to me, I want to call your dad and speak to him because my dad, I'm very close with my dad and my mum, but my dad, particularly when it comes to business and signing contracts, he is very well versed. So he called my dad and he said, listen, I want to sign your son, and I think he's going to be really big. I think he's very good at this, and I think he's going to be a star. My dad said, I'm sure you say this to everyone, but all I know is anything I see my son do, I think he's amazing. So I actually don't know if he's very good at this, because anything I see him do, I think he's wonderful. So as long as you can promise me you try and keep him kind, you try and keep him calm, and you do the best for him, I'll be absolutely fine. And Jörg said, give me 5 years, and if you're not happy in 5 years, I will happily convince your son to leave the industry and to do something else if you decide it. So I'll give you 5 years. And it was 3 years, and then we got Sixpence, and my dad took me out for a dinner to say thank you, which is great.
That's so amazing.
Yeah. So I have two dads.
That is a very lovely story.
Yeah, it's a lovely story.
What a powerful support network as well to have.
I have a very wonderful support network, which is great. All my family I'm so close to. And my friends, I think, I didn't have crazy amounts of friends growing up. I think that was because I did so many sports of an evening, and because of my ADHD tendencies maybe made me, as soon as I saw people, I just wanted to impress. So I was 100% all the time. And that would kind of spiral into me being confused why I didn't have friends. So it wasn't until I was a little bit older, and actually I started half Sixpence, and that's when I met Sam O'Rourke, who is one of my best friends, and Will Bozier in Wicked as well. And I got this lovely connection of friends. And I always thought it was just coincidence that I had this friendship group and this family support network at the same time as Sixpence happened. But really, I was looking for it, and I hit the jackpot. And I think that's why I've been able to sustain it for such a long period of time, is because I have 20 people on my phone who are, if I call and say, I need you, they're going to be there. There's no question. And vice versa, So yeah, I have a wonderful support network. You
mentioned before Jörg's seen you through moments of stress. What stresses you out?
That's a good question. Well, myself, I think is the first one that comes to mind. I think the job in many ways, but it is also wonderful. It's that balance, isn't it? Of things that stress me out would be me not performing to the highest level that I can. You did a wonderful podcast episode with John Robbins, and it was like having tonic. It was so wonderful to hear another performer speak about the idea of perfection as a performer and how it doesn't really exist. This idea that everything needs to be perfect. When I was younger and when I needed support from a lot of support from Jörg of an understanding of an industry sense, was because I thought that everything needed to be perfect. So when I was doing half a Sixpence, every turn needed to be perfect. Every jump needed to be perfect. Every song needed to be perfect. And it worked so well at the time because I was able to give these performances that were so young and were so raw, because everything was. And then now as a mature performer, I'm able to go, whatever you get from me today, whatever you see, has to be good enough. Because if it's not, then I can't sustain it. I'm so sorry, but you've hired the wrong person. And that sounds like I'm giving less. I'm not. I will walk into any building, and if you put a spotlight on me, I will give 100% of what I have on the day. But the difference now is I'm no longer willing to sacrifice the rest of my life to do this. And that's a wonderful lesson to learn, I think. To be able to learn that lesson is joyous. And actually, I think it's made my performance element so much stronger. It's made it so much better and more. There's so much more depth to everything I do because I'm not worried about it. I'm not stressed. I've spoken about this a lot, but one of the things that used to stress me out now doesn't, because I have other things in my life. So Jörg was able to help me with that by saying, we need to find something else for you to do. Gardening was one that was a massive... I always tick a box from when I've mentioned gardening. I finally mentioned it, and it wasn't straight away, which is pretty impressive for me. So, so Jörg really helped me through those things, and then also finding a balance. You want everything to be perfect. Jörg always says the 5 pillars of life. I'm going to not remember all of them, but if one of your pillars is out of place, the only thing I can focus on is that one pillar that's out of place, and it stems from the dance classes of everything needs to be perfect. If your job is to look in a mirror and find what's wrong with you, you are always going to find struggle and find hard, when in reality, actually, there's nothing wrong with you. But your job is to find something wrong with you. It's so hard, isn't it? It's so tricky in that way. But finding a 3-hour day, part of my day, where I find something that's wrong with me, I find the enjoyment of trying to find perfection. And when I can't find it, I say, that's wonderful. And I didn't find it today, but I had great fun. I put it in a box and I go home. Just about. Sometimes.
Sounds very accomplished. I think the key to what you said there is I'll give 100% of what I have on the day.
Yeah.
It's that on the day piece, isn't it? Because until that point, until you can really take that on board, you're constantly trying to find the perfection of everything you could ever do, of everything you could ever achieve in every performance that you're doing. Which show were you on when you learnt this wonderful insight?
I learnt it in between shows more than on shows, I think. It's only after the fact that I can look back and view it properly. And particularly after the experience in New York, I think. So I said the experience in New York. I went to Broadway. How amazing!
Yeah,
That'll make it sound like I went.
We have skipped a bit.
Well, not massively. I can explain. We did Sixpence, which is a joyous experience, and then I had a little break. I did the pantomime at the Palladium, and then I finished the pantomime on the Sunday. I flew Monday morning, and my first show was on the Saturday for Hello Dolly on Broadway. So I learnt show in like 6 days. How great. I was so young I could, and nothing fazed me, nothing was worried. I was just like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. Let's go. When I was in New York, I realized that actually this beautiful, incredible experience that I loved, the scales were really kind of pulling towards the hardness of it, because I missed my family. I missed this incredible support network that I've already spoken about that are so ingrained in me as a person, to have these people around me that when they're not there, I'm missing a part of myself. And learning that lesson was joyous, because I'm so happily independent now, and don't need anyone but want people. But also what I learned from that show was that if the show is the only thing that there is, there's nothing else. So after a few stressful nights of worrying and anxiousness, I kind of would always worry and be anxious about not being okay for work. And really, actually, I just need to be okay, and then I'll be okay for work. So work is just one of the many elements. So taking the break in between shows was able for me to do that. 3 or 4 weeks, or sometimes 3 months in between shows, you can look back at it and go, no, actually, I don't want to put myself in that place again. Or I don't want to come home after a show and be like, that isn't good enough anymore. That isn't good enough. That isn't good enough. But you always will, but you can find a way to be at peace with it. And the way that I can do that now is to do that, is have that mantra, and which is what John spoke about so perfectly as well. So yeah, I learned in between the shows.
We're on Broadway.
Yes.
Obviously, there's a time difference between Broadway and the West End, or the UK.
Yeah.
How did you find that when trying to reach those support networks that you had at home? Did you have new support networks that you have out in Broadway, or what do we do?
So really good question, because that was something I didn't really take into consideration at first, was how tricky that would be. To give context, you finish the show at 10:30 and you're 5 hours behind. So, everyone's asleep. I found that very tricky at first. And then my dad lived in New York for a little bit. So I saw my dad a lovely bit of time, which is nice. But he would be very busy of an evening, or would be kind of back and forth. So I would struggle to see him. I found them quite tricky. And then I had someone in my cast who was playing the lead, and I voiced to him that I was struggling a little bit. His name's Gavin Creel. Unfortunately, we lost Gavin this year. We lost Gavin not long ago, and anyone who knows Gavin will not be surprised at all about what I'm about to say. Gavin just took me under his wing and just said, I know exactly how you feel, because I've been there. And already I was like, thank goodness, someone who understands, because he'd been in London and he'd had the same issues.
Right.
And he said, what we're going to do tonight is you're going to come over, we're going to watch a movie, and we're going to stay up as long as you want. I don't care. And just that was just like the hug that I just needed. I just needed that. And I remember just sitting there, and then Gavin saying, do you want to hear one of my songs? And I was like, you Gavin Creel, do you want to play one of your songs on piano? The Gavin Creel, the person I've been listening to since I was a kid, doing the Thoroughly Modern Millie soundtrack. Yes, I want to hear one of your songs. And he played me this song, and he said, this song's about me losing a book. He said, I had a book of lyrics, and it was full of a folder of a book he'd written, and he'd written on every page, and it was completely full of lyrics. And I was going to take this book to a producer, and I was going to write a whole album. And 2 weeks before, I left it on a train and I lost it.
Wow.
So I was so upset that the only thing I could do was to write a song about it. And he played me the song and I just sobbed. I just sobbed and I sobbed and I sobbed. And he couldn't see me because he was facing the back. I was so glad he didn't, because if he'd heard me sob, he would have been like, oh, I didn't want to upset you. I'd be like, no, they're good tears. And I just felt so calm. I felt so comfortable and so relaxed that I was able to carry on and I was able to have confidence. So yeah, I definitely found a support network out there. Gavin helped me find that. And then I became closer with other members of the cast. It was tricky because predominantly on Broadway, everyone's a lot older. I was already young to be on the West End, let alone to be on Broadway. Yeah. I was 23. So, finding that was crazy, but wonderful. And so everyone was a little bit older. Everyone went home to their families. But then I found Gavin, I found my friend Will Burton, and I found some really special friends who I'm still really close to.
That's really interesting to hear as well, because you've obviously done the West End, you've done the international touring, and you've done Broadway, and they're all rather quite different.
So different.
Because, you would think, it might be similar to international touring, but actually you're with people that you stay with.
Yeah.
And so was Broadway the sort of the furthest out of that comfort zone almost that you had been?
I think so, yes, because it is also an extraordinarily busy city. So as much as you're dealing with your own demons, my nan said when she came, bless my nan, she did not like New York. She did not like New York. She found it, the expression she gave was, it's like having a caged monkey be inches away from your face at all times. And I was like, I get what you mean, actually, Nan. Because in any sense, it can be so overpowering. The noises, the sounds, the people are so lovely, but they're so loud and they're so big. And it was quite daunting to kind of have that. So I bought a hammock to have on my balcony. As much as I say it was tricky at points, I lived amazingly. I lived on 42nd Street. I lived on 11th. I was on the Hudson. I had a balcony that faced over the Hudson. I was 52nd floor up in the air. Nice. It was the most incredible experience of my life. It was supposed to be for somebody else, and they didn't end up doing the job that they were supposed to do for the same producer. So he said, listen, I was going to give you this apartment, but the other guys pulled out. Would you like an apartment that's so much better? And I was like, okay. His Netflix password was still on the account, so I bought his Netflix for a year.
Nice.
Thank you. It was amazing, but it was tricky. So I bought a very expensive pair of noise-cancelling headphones. I bought a hammock, and I would just rest in my hammock. And it was the best night's sleep I had, was just kind of chilling in that hammock and having that. Because you then can't hear the sirens, you can't hear the noise, you can't hear the hustle and bustle. And I had friends come and stay a lot, though, as well. I had friends like once every 2 weeks, I'd have someone come stay of all my friends, and I'd be able to say, you don't have to pay for anything because I've literally got this place. You don't have to pay for that. I'm going to get you tickets for my show. And I was obsessed with Devon Hansen at the time. So like of my closest friends and family, I said, I bought you a ticket for Devon Hansen tonight, by the way. So you're going to go watch that. So go and enjoy yourself. And it was always the most joyous thing of walking home with someone when you've just done Hello, Dolly, the most happiest show in the world, and they've just seen Devon Hansen. And they literally can't even make a sentence. It just made me laugh. That was always fun. It was a real change, but it was really special as well. The pros and cons to every situation, I think, and lifestyle, but those are very prominently swayed on both sides.
We'll get back to the episode in just a minute, but I just wanted to quickly say that 75% of you are not subscribed to this channel. So if you could, hit that subscribe button, like this video, and ding the bell for notifications so you never miss an episode in the future.
Just rewind back to 14-year-old Charlie or 11-year-old Charlie for a minute. Did he ever dream of performing on Broadway?
No.
Did he dream of performing on the West End?
My first West End show I saw was when I was 14 years old. I saw Wicked. And I'd love to say it was this really special moment where I was like, I want to do this. I had a bloke who sat in front of me who tilted his head from side to side for the whole show. I didn't see a thing. I remember being like, this is ridiculous. Why don't you just watch this at home on a TV? This is the silliest thing in the world. So I didn't have much desire to do it until I was in it. and then I got to be backstage. And that's when I went, I want to do this in any capacity. I'm all about people. I want to joke around backstage with everybody. That's the highlight of my job, is making the people I work with laugh. Yes, it's lovely to make the audience laugh, but really, if you can make one of your cast members' days, make it, just go in and be a sense of joy or a sense of happiness. It's just the most wonderful place to be. It's the most wonderful place to work, is when you come in and something bad will happen and you'll all just bring each other up. You'll all just find a way to make each other laugh and get through it, and go to the pub after. What's better? What could be better?
And now you're on the other side of it, and you can see the bloke that's blocking somebody else's view.
Stop moving your head, please. Yes. So I love my job.
It's so clear that you love it, and the passion that you have and the way you speak about it is infectious. It's so amazing. And
I'm going to show you guys after. This won't be a massive explanation for those watching and listening, but very recently did Kiss Me Kate, and one of the guys in our cast did this wonderful bit on stage, and every day he'd look to the side and I would do something different for him in the wings. And say every day, I mean every show, I did a full set change, full costume change. I did full out. We did all the Olympic sports at one point. I did different shows. I did everything. If I'd worked as hard on that moment as I did on my actual role and job, I think I actually would have been reviewed better. But that is my job. That is my job. That's as much of a part of any person's job in any industry, I think, but particularly in this one. And that is what a leading role should do, a leading person, but it's what everyone should try and aim to do. You know.
Did you learn that from watching other leaders?
Yes, Gavin. I learned that from Gavin, particularly, and other wonderful stars as well. But the phrase "it trickles down" is so true. If you have somebody who leads by example and who leads with a sense of a fine balance between someone who loves doing what they do, works so hard, but as soon as it goes wrong and it's out of your hands, that just goes, hey, it's okay. Don't worry. It's all right. There's nothing you can do. And that is just wonderful to learn. I think that was one thing that Gavin would always kind of say was, it's 12 people's job in a theatre to tell me what to do. If you're not one of them, please don't tell me what to do. Tell the person whose job it is to, because then the lines aren't blurred. And lessons like that. And I could stand for all day telling about what he used to say to me. But another thing was that he would make sure that there was a moment that everybody connected. There was a moment that off stage, everybody connected. It wasn't something that was massive or deep. It wasn't like, we're doing this piece of theatre and it means the world. It was just like, hey, you're a human. I see you. I hope you're okay. I hope you're good today. How are you? How's things? And then you move on. And just that sense of connection just makes the experience better, then makes the show better, I think.
Have you seen that culture change since you've been in the business?
Not while I'm around. Well, I try not to. I try not to.
I mean, for the better. I feel like there's
really good question.
Beginning to be more understanding and more compassion.
Hell yeah. Absolutely, yeah. I think with the rise of an understanding of mental health, I think with companies like Applause for Thought, who come in and do incredible work in theatres and in places that theatres work, to have an understanding of how these things affect other people. One thing that I am really trying to do at the moment is, when I'm in a company of people, your instinct is to be like, well, the producers do this, or, oh, the producers do that, and, oh, they're very frustrating, or, oh, my company manager is actually just trying to explain to the younger people, particularly in the cast. And actually sometimes the either the youngest or the eldest in the cast, it's normally between the two, maybe why this might have happened. And actually that they aren't bad people. No one's bad people. It's actually just sometimes this is a business, and you can understand why things are hard for everyone, and trying to have more compassion for why these things are being done is making a big difference, I think. I think also if you pay people better, that helps. I think if you give people more time away from the building, it helps. I think if you give people a sense that they have to be in this building, or if your career will end if you don't come in this building, that sense has definitely changed. I think with company managers like Katie Bryant, who was my company manager on Mary Poppins and is a wonderful human being who made everybody so clear during such a stressful time during COVID when we were on Mary Poppins, when people were fearful for their life to come into the building. There was always this sense that if you didn't come in the building, that you would lose your job and your professional career would be over. That wasn't what they were saying, but as an actor who is so dispensable, that was how you felt. And Katie would make it so clear, that is not what's going on here. If you don't feel safe, do not come in this building. But at the same time, I say, but the balance on both sides, the producers have to put a show on and we have to try and make money here. This is for our benefit and for theirs. So she balanced that so well. And I think now we have more of an understanding of how these things affect people. Yeah, I think it's definitely making a good change. Yeah, I do.
You mentioned COVID. How was your COVID?
Changing. Very changing for me, I think. A sense of financial instability that I hadn't had since really started my professional career. I had just bought a house, which was wonderful. And it's strange to say you have financial instability, yet you've just bought a house. But really what happened was I bought my lovely house just before COVID started. I put all of my money into this house, and then COVID hit. And I wasn't able to get any government support because I had been very fortunate enough to have been so successful. So I had to work. So I had to, for the first time, teach. And I taught workshop after workshop after workshop after workshop. And at first it was like, I just need to earn the money. I need to pay for an extension. My house wasn't livable when I bought it. So I need to put the floors in. I needed to get the gas fixed because there was no gas in the house. I needed to get new water pipes because there was literally all the pipes were falling apart and bursting. So I worked and worked and worked. And after about 2 or 3 workshop classes, I remember going, this is amazing. I love this. I love teaching. I love working with people who want to be there and using that buzzy energy that I have all the time to try and make someone more excited about something that I love. So it was changing in a wonderful way because I have found this new love and joy in my life that is teaching.
You mentioned when you were studying as a dancer, you're constantly looking for what can I make better, and the difficulties, the challenges that can bring. Yeah. Are you aware of that as a teacher?
Yes, I think I'm aware of that as a teacher, that as much as I wasn't aware that it was an issue, I see it in other students. And sometimes I think it can be a real positive influence on some people, that they will find a healthy way to do it. But there are real clear signs that there are negatives, especially in the industry. I think with a lot of younger students, I've certainly noticed, especially during COVID, this real mental health. I'm trying to think of the right word to use. I think probably this awareness, but fear as well. And as a teacher who was not at the time even a mental health first aider. I'm now proudly a mental health first aider, but even as a mental health first aider, I'm not a therapist. And there was a real worry as the teacher that a child or a student will have that sense of wanting to be perfect, and it will crumble them in the room. And you will see a real raw side to them that you're not supposed to work on, but actually that even sometimes the college don't have the facilities to help them. And what I have tried to do to find that balance is I will push my students very hard, but at the same time, at the start and at the end of the class, I'll make sure that we all smile. And I think if you start with that, what's it called? The something sandwich with it. Good things.
Shit sandwich.
Yeah. I wasn't sure I was allowed to say it. There you go. Shit sandwich.
You can swear, it's
okay. Yeah. So having that moment of starting with kindness and then ending it with something that is interesting and exciting. I love finishing the class with something you didn't know about the industry. So like a little chat, I'll always ask them, like, you know, if you were ill and you didn't feel very well, and your company manager has said to you, we really need you to come in, what would you do? And, you know, it's so interesting because once again, that desire and drive for perfection, some students will be like, well, I'm going in. Even if I'm broken, I'm going to go in and I'm going to do this. And then others will be like, no, I'm not going in. I'm not doing that. And it's about finding that balance. And there is no right or wrong answer a lot of the time, but it's just about seeing the eyes light up of that. Not everybody has the same opinion, and then us leaving on, you know, I'll always tell like funny stories of shows. We've had, you know, hundreds and thousands of them, but like little ones, and always do that. So there's a passion and a drive for them to want to do it still. But and also I get to tell stories, which is what I love to do as well. So yeah, fun and a balance.
It's great. It's great. They're very lucky to have you.
Wow. So sometimes I'm tired, and it's never that, and it's like, do more, please. Okay. But we find the balance.
So you come back from Broadway, just to be linear for a minute. You come back from Broadway, and we're going into Poppins now, are we?
Yes, we are. Pantomime first.
Okay.
So in between every job, I do pantomime at Palladium, which is my favourite jobs in the world. But I grew up on Orchard Theatre shows. So the Orchard's in Dartford. We couldn't afford to go to the West End when I was younger. So the only shows I would go to that I really remember were pantomimes. And I loved those. I've always loved those. I've had such a connection with them. West End shows, as I said, not until I was 14, but Panto every year. And we would pay for the tickets the year before so that they were cheaper. So we'd spend £10 each on the tickets and we'd go for the Panto. So in between every job, I've done pantomime, and I'm proudest of all my jobs of doing the Pantos, actually, because that's incredible. The last person who played Dick Whittington at the London Palladium before me was Norman Wisdom, who's like my idol, which is amazing. It's like, wow. They have his costume at the Palladium, and I walk past it all the time. And nice. You know, there's a mirror at the London Palladium. I don't know if you guys know this. There's a mirror at the London Palladium that's like one of the oldest things in the building, and everyone's looked in that mirror. So you walk past it, and you're doing something that is so British, and it's in the heritage of theatre. It's like the oldest theatre traditions we have. You know, sometimes I think some people say it's even older than Shakespeare. So like we have this incredible experience of being able to walk past this mirror where it's like Shirley Bassey's looked in, Frank Sinatra's looked in, and you're doing pantomime there. And you've been the one that's been picked to be the lead in it, or to be the musical theatre representative. And it's so special. It makes me emotional. It's wonderful. As much as it does Mary Poppins, which is what you were leading on to. Sorry, I got carried away with Panto.
No, I feel very similarly in backstage at theatres. The spirit of all those who have worked in there. Yeah. And you don't need to know the names to feel it. It's that's quite intoxicating. That keeps me coming back for more, for sure.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. It's real special.
So I hear tell that you campaigned quite hard for Bert.
Oh, not half, yeah. I did.
Not half, Mary Poppins.
I did. Cameron took me for dinner, who's the producer of Mary Poppins. And he said, thank you, darling, for doing the show. You've been fantastic. And I said, great, well, when are you going to put me in Mary Poppins? And I was so brash. I was so confident, as only a young man can be. And he said, darling, you're too young. You're too young. And I said, well, I'm not, because I'm perfect for it. And please put me in it. It's like, no. I could see him smile, and I was like, So then I went to see some friends who were on the tour, and I sent him a picture of me on the set with a broom, with a chimney sweep, saying, I think this looks perfect. I was in America, and I got the call, and they said, do you want to be Bert in Mary Poppins? And quite hilariously, my agent said, you know, when we go into this deal, I want to know how far I can push it. So all agents will have an understanding of how much money you are at the minimum to expect with equity rates. But as you do leading roles, they will have an understanding roughly of what to expect, or what is expected of you. So my agent knew this, and he said, before that, I want to know, how much would you do this show for? what's the minimum that you would do this show for? And I said, I would do this show for equity minimum. I would play Bert for £600 a week. And he said, I'm going to pretend you didn't say that. And he put the phone down. And then, and we did the deal. And, it was just, it's so special. I watched that as a kid. I think anyone who loves theatre did, but Dick Van Dyke and Norman Wisdom and Lee Evans are my three, Hugh Grant, not Hugh Grant. What have I forgotten his name? Hugh Jackman.
Hugh Jackman. Oh, God, sorry.
Terrible names. There you go. I got it in the end.
There you are. Thank you.
Three of my idols. And so Dick Van Dyke, I used to put the broom, my mum's broom, up the chimney sweep, up the chimney pipe when I was younger and get stuck there. My mum used to get absolutely mad. So that was a lovely moment to be able to do that on the West End and really kind of live my childhood dream of doing that show. Very special.
I mean, really hard. The hardest role?
Yes. I mean, we had some singing lessons, didn't we, before I started?
We did.
And there was some vocally, it is a very hard sing because you are shouting the entirety of the show. Mm. So you speak, sing everything, and it's really quite nice and easy. And it's kind of, winds in the east, there's a mist coming in. It's all very kind of spoken and casual. Mm. And then at the end of Act 1, you have this like big moment of like, Jim, Jiminy, Jim, Jim. And it has to be really kind of like strong tenor, high baritone. And I'm a baritone, always have been. And I remember speaking to you about it. And I remember saying, I'm finding this so hard. And you were the one that pointed out, you're saying, well, how are you saying all these other lines? And I was like, oh, I'm shouting them. I'm literally shouting constantly. Come on, Mary Poppins, here we go. Come on in, lads, way, here we go. So you really helped me kind of find that placement of where everything had to go because it has to go in a place that's sustainable. And I only learned that that was after COVID. So I'd done 6 months of just shouting and cracking on top notes before I finally figured out how to do it. But it was a tricky show. Vocally, physically, very rarely went off because of injuries and sustained. But it's special. You can't be tired when you're doing a step in time. It's just not possible. You're just having the best time.
I always say to everybody, I work with a lot of companies and I very rarely see people on Mary Poppins because everybody's just really happy. Like their larynxes are nice and relaxed. Nobody's got stress because it's just a happy show. Les Mis, totally different story.
Very different. And that's what it was. I mean, I definitely tried to lead with that of every time we're doing step in time, we're doing one of those numbers, just naturally just being like, how great is this? This is one of the most incredible dance numbers you will ever see. Yeah. And we get to do it. We get to tap. I get to tap upside down. I get to, wear this crazy, ridiculous harness and then, dance with Mary Poppins. It's just like dream
How
come
did
true.
it feel the first time you tried that, dancing upside down?
Gavin ruined it for me.
Oh.
He said to me, don't eat any food. I said, what? He said, trust me, don't eat any food. I ate a ham sandwich and I went straight upside down. Honestly, I brought the sandwich back up. And I was so I was going up and I was nervous slightly. You're going upside down, you see the throat, something breaks, you jam. So I was like, okay, so I've got to keep going. And then I just kept thinking, when did you eat? When did you last eat? Are you going to be okay? And I was like, oh, I'm okay. I'm actually fine. So Gavin made me worried about it. But then he also said something really special when he was the first person I told I got the job because he had played. Yeah. He said, oh man, you're going to grow so much. I was like, what do you mean? He said, that's where I learned to break the fourth wall. And he said, before everyone used to tell me it's wrong to break the fourth wall. You shouldn't break the fourth wall. And there it's encouraged and it's celebrated and it's a way to do it that's so classy and it can be so joyful. And it was my favorite thing to do. If we had a show stop, I'd be like buzzing because I would be able to go out and just kind of just say to the audience, oh, sorry about that. Should we carry on? And, just those little moments that if someone gives you the artistic license to push something and stretch it, that was where I was in my element. And then it led me on to doing my, next crazy, big, wonderful, joyous job, which was Crazy for You, which is where it was a comedy. And ever so slightly, I was able to do that. And anytime they asked for it, it was in my arsenal because I'd done it. And I'd learned how to do that in a comfortable, respectful way. And we say respectful because, like, if you break the fourth wall too much, the story is gone. And then it's negative. So you have to find a balance of when to do it. And normally it only ever happens when something goes wrong. You are allowed to, I think you have to explain to the audience they're not stupid. You have to say, like on Crazy for You, we had a moment where me and Tom had these moustaches on, and because I was so sweaty, we would have this moment, we'd mirror each other and we'd do these moves. And my moustache fell off. And I didn't do anything. I was just stood there and it just dropped onto the table. And all I did was look at it, look at Tom and go, oh no. And that was enough. It didn't need to be anything big. It needed to be go, the stars are falling off the big. That tiny little moment. And you have to acknowledge it. You have to explain to the audience, something's gone wrong here. How funny is that? And then they relax and they allow, and then it's the best audience you've ever had. If that happened every night, we would have been well happy. But the understanding the producers were like, please don't let that happen again. Please just tell the story. But yeah, we used to live there. That was the moment we lived for, was those little breaks, those little comedy moments.
You've talked a lot about loving backstage and as an actor, loving the world of it. What is your relationship with an audience? Do you feed off them? Sorry, it makes you sound like a vampire.
No, sorry.
An energy vampire.
That's a really good question. No, actually, it depends on the show. It depends on, I think my job is to tell a story, but audiences sometimes for me can very much feed into that sense of perfection when you're doing shows like Mary Poppins or Crazy for You or Half Sixpence. You have to make them laugh. You have to make them feel things. If you don't get the same response you got last night, you're not happy. And you can tell yourself excuses as why that's not. Oh, well, it's a Wednesday matinee. Everyone's tired. And in my head, I go, if you were good enough, it wouldn't matter. So I find it tricky sometimes to lean into wanting to impress the audience and actually now having to take a step back and going, I will impress the audience. It's not that I want to. It's that if I trust myself, I trust my ability, and if I feel tired, I need to be present in how I feel and know that, okay, today you are going to get a Bobby Child who is a little bit tired. You're not going to get a Charlie Stemp that's really tired and I feel really guilty. You're going to get a Bobby Child who is tired, and I'm going to find a way to make that valid in the story. And that playing around with the audience has made it so much more enjoyable. If they didn't laugh, that's okay. That's okay. You don't need to laugh because, there's a reason. And I'm going to make sure that reason is because of something that I've chosen. It's my choice. Yeah.
And it also comes back to only giving 100% of what you have available on that day.
Exactly, yeah. And that's so much more truthful than trying to come in and...
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And that's what I tell students as well, is actually like, we'll say, what do you see as the characteristics of a good company member? And everyone's always like, someone that's lovely, someone that's always happy all the time, someone that turns up to work on time all the time, someone that's, works really hard. And the honest answer is I am not all of those things all the time. No one is. And actually, someone you want around you is someone that's consistent, someone that is a good company member for me, someone that's consistent, someone that knows that they're tired on that day, someone that and knows how to communicate that. If you're in a dressing room full of people, that is so hard to do, especially in the ensemble. I found that so hard was how can I can barely understand how I feel, let alone regulate it, let alone explain to other people how I feel. So learning to be able to go in and say to people, hey guys, I hope you're all good. I don't want to bring you down, but I'm just letting you know today, I'm a little bit tired. And you don't have to go in and go, oh, I'm tired all the time. But it's just communicating to people that you work with that you may be a little bit off today so that they don't take it as something that they've done wrong themselves. Yeah. Because that's your natural instinct is, have I done this wrong? Is it me that's made this person feel that way? Yeah, that's a good lesson to learn, I hope. Sometimes. I'm still tired all the time, but I still tell people about it.
Well, that's age.
I think so.
Sorry
for
about
sure. I think so for sure. Brilliant.
I'm aware that I'm about to open a very large can of worms when we only have time for a very small can of worms. Sure. So I apologise for this. But you mentioned living with characteristics of ADHD before. And I know it's very easy for that to come across as the problems of living with. What do you think are the advantages of living with?
That's a wonderful question. My sense of optimism, I think, comes from it. I think there are so many characteristics in myself that I could say. I think all of these things differ so much from person to person. But from my own experience, I get my sense of hard work. I don't realize it's hard, so I do it. And people will be like, oh my God, how did you do that on stage? I can't believe you didn't stop for 2 hours. I'll say, because I didn't realize that that it was hard work. And I think that is definitely one of them. I think there's such a balance between the guilt you feel about having these characteristics, that I feel about having these characteristics, that sometimes I'll forget names. Sorry, Hugh Jackman, sorry, Hugh, wherever you are. I have such a guilt that I have a terrible memory, that I will stop learning things at 4:00 in the afternoon and rehearsals will carry on till 6, or that I will come into work sometimes and I will leave a conversation being like, did I just talk at that person? Did I ask them anything about themselves? It would just be such a kind of check-in with myself constantly. But really, that's only when I'm tired do I find the negatives. When I find the positives, I'll go, hold up. You had a lovely conversation with someone today. You are so busy that you can't remember anyone's names because you've had such a wonderful life that you've been able to meet so many people. So there are so many balances to be able to find that. And the energy that I have is wonderful. It's amazing. And yes, it can drive people bonkers.
But it also lifts you up. Speaking as somebody who works in the room with you, it lifts you up. Charlie leaves the room and you're fueled and ready to go for the next thing. It's infectious.
You. Yeah, well, thank you. I don't mean to do that, but I'm glad that happens. Thank you. I'm glad.
The very opposite of an energy vampire. Yes. Do you think there's enough room taken for neurodiversity in the business? Do you think we can do better?
Yes. It worries me that I don't know the answer of how that happens, but yes, I do. I think it's tricky because everyone's neurodivergent traits and characteristics are so different that I think it needs to start from a communication point of view of in the room. That's the only way that I would deal with it myself and how I've learned to deal with it. But yeah, I think there's definitely room and space. I think there can be more of an understanding, though, also from the person. Yes, the producer has an absolute responsibility to make the room safe, and also they will want it to be as hardworking because it benefits them financially. But also, it can't just be them. It needs to come from you. There needs to be a sense of understanding and growth that comes from you. And I think that starts with an understanding of yourself. And that's so tricky when you're so young because you don't know yourself. So I don't know the answer of how to fix it. But I know that for myself, what's helped me is being able to listen to myself. Before I go into a room now, I try and go, how do I feel? Am I really energetic? Because if I'm really energetic and I go into that room, I can't regulate. So I'm just going to go in and be like, hi, everyone, how are you all doing? And, someone's crying and I will completely glaze over that fact. So I have to calm myself and say, how do I feel? I'm really energetic. Remember you feel energetic when you go into this room because it will help. So I think one thing that I think will benefit anyone who thinks that they or either knows that they have neurodivergent tendencies or traits or has been diagnosed would be to try and check in with yourself as much as possible.
I actually think that's a great rule of thumb for everybody.
Yeah, for everyone.
Isn't it?
Absolutely.
Isn't it? Coming into a room of creative people who've got so much going on. If we all could come in with a little bit of self-awareness and that little check-in moment, exactly as you say, it's communication and how you communicate where you're at that makes a room truly collaborative.
Absolutely, yeah. I agree.
So I'm going to open a big
another
can of
one
worms as well, just because I know we haven't got you for much longer.
Yeah, of course.
But it's Christmas.
Yes.
As evidenced.
Yes.
And my jumpers. There's a little topic that we've touched upon throughout, but we need to address it. Panto.
Yes.
It's Panto season.
It is Panto season. I'm doing 12 shows a week.
We've basically plucked you out of rehearsals for Robin Hood to get you in to have this chat, and we've taken far too much of your time already. But I would love if you could talk to us a little bit about Panto. What are you doing currently? What's going on?
So at the moment I am doing, we're going to be doing Robin Hood. We're in rehearsals for Robin Hood with Jane McDonald, Julian Clary, Nigel Havers, Paul Zerdin. I named everyone. I did
you did it!
Yes. It's joyous. I mean, the Palladium Panto is the height of Panto, really. It has become so through years of practice and through nurturing, through Julian Clary, who is just exceptional. He's just amazing. And what's so wonderful as well is the director, Michael Harrison, has been my producer for shows. He's been my producer for Crazy For You. So I've seen him as a producer role, but seeing him in a director role as well is so wonderful because you barely see the producer. You kind of see him every so often, and you know he's always worried because, it's hard being a producer. It's exhausting and crazy. So seeing him be so creative about something that he is so gifted at. He's been doing this for years. Before the Palladium Panto, he's been doing it in Newcastle for years and years and years, and he's honed his craft to the point where when we're in the room, if you do something that is not funny, he won't say. And that's so hard when you're doing a comedy because your instinct is to go, that's not funny, let's get it out. He'll go, okay. And he did it to me, came up to me and he said, how do you feel about that moment? And he'll ask me and he'll just say, how do you feel? Do you feel, are you comfortable with this joke that's at your expense, or are you comfortable with the joke you're making? And if you are working with someone who is unaware that the joke is not funny, 9 times out of 10, everyone in that room is good enough at their craft to know, it's not funny. It's not working. Let's move on. Let's find something else. But if they don't, he will find a way to go, I've got something else. I've got something else. You're going to love this. I've got something else. So the way he works with these incredible, incredible stars that we've had over years, Elaine Page, we've had, I could begin to start how many names we've had, but we've just Paul O'Grady. We've had so many stars, incredible people. It's all about them. It always has to be all about them. And if they don't like a joke, it won't be funny. Or it won't be funny for the right reasons. And Julian is a genius. He writes the script, so the script is unbelievably funny. I've written some lyrics myself this year, which is fun.
Hey.
Opening Act 2. Well, I say I've written the lyrics. I've changed the lyrics of a very well-known Chitty Chitty Bang Bang song. So instead of singing Me Old Bamboo, I'll be singing Me Old Long Bow this year, which is great. And it gives me the chance to perform another incredible showman number that I've always wanted to do. So it's wonderful. The dancers are some of the best dancers in the West End. The singers are some of the best singers in the West End. The performers are some of the greatest around the world. We're just so fortunate, and I love being a part of it. And every time I'm not in a longer running show, Michael, get me in for the panto. Please, can I come in? Please, can I come back? Please, can I come back? And the reason everybody comes back every year is because it's so wonderful and it's so joyous.
It is so great. And recently I've discovered, rather quite amusingly, that people in America, or rather people outside of the UK, don't really have any concept of what panto is. We do have some American listeners. And I know you're going to hate doing this because you already said that you hate doing the 3 words
thing. Is it 3 words?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you could describe panto, not this show, just panto in 3 words.
I can't say Robin Hood, Pantomime, Palladium, can I?
No. Describe
That's 4.
panto.
That's a really good question. Camp, tradition, and heart, I think, is definitely one. All of the stories are based on that, aren't they? You know, like all of those stories. The first one I did was Dick Whittington, and there was something so special in that first year about playing a character from London whose first thing they have to sing was, what is it about London? They say it's a city like no other in this land. And like, I got to just buzz this lovely city that I have always been a massive, it's my home. And then just sing songs like, what was it we sang? I sang, what's the song from Titanic? Near, far, wherever you are. Yeah, I sang that with Julian Clary on a boat that floated around the Palladium. I was on a double-decker bus that flew out into the audience, and I got to wave at kids every night and see a look on their face that was like, they're not looking for wires. They were just like, there is this bus that is genuinely floating out into the audience. That's the most special moment of my career, is having that, It's just incredible. I love it.
It comes back to that breaking the fourth wall thing.
Yeah, it does.
It does. It's permission to actually get right in there.
Yeah. And make a change or just make someone smile,
You genuinely shine when you're talking about it.
Oh, thank you.
I can't wait to come and watch you do it.
It'll be a right laugh. It'll be brilliant.
Charlie, thank you so much for sharing your story and your thoughts. We've got two little questions for you.
Indeed.
The first one is, we're called the 5-minute call. Yes. What do you do at the 5-minute call?
Now, I have thought about this quite a bit. And the honest answer is it differs from every show, but the main thing that I will be doing is I will have a Jakemans. I will be sucking on Jakemans, and I will at 5 minutes I will take it out, I'll put it back in the wrapper, I'll fold it up, I'll put it back in my pocket, and I'll get in trouble with my dresser. So that's definitely what I'll be doing at the 5-minute call.
I love it. So our second question, we actually don't know what it is, because
of course we
have a little bit of a tradition, which we get the guest of the previous episode to write a guest for you.
Write a question for him. Not a guest for him. We get the...
Yeah, there you go. This is absolutely staying in because Panto sees it. We get the guest of the... You know the deal. It doesn't matter.
I know the deal.
There's a question in here that we don't know.
Okay.
I'm going to read it to you now.
Yes.
And then the fun bit is you get to write one for the next guest.
I've already got mine.
Oh, I love it.
This is I don't think we've had a guest who's done their research before. This stuff.
As a first.
Charlie's unfairly prepared for this.
That's brilliant, because John Robbins was so proud about the fact that he over prepares for everything. I'm even more prepared than John Robbins.
To be fair, he was literally the first guest.
Fair. Sorry, John.
Oh, you're going to love this.
Okay, great.
If you could play a role who is a different gender to yourself, who would it be?
Oh, what a great question. Calamity from Calamity Jane. Straight away, I knew it.
Oh, that was quick.
Yeah, Calamity from Calamity Jane.
Nice.
I watched that as a kid and watching Doris Day, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Doris Day just blew in from the Windy City. You're just like enthralled. So it'd definitely be Calamity Jane. No question.
Well, I need to see that now.
Yes. Great.
I'd love to do that. Completely inappropriate, but jealous.
That's amazing. Brilliant. Thank you so much. It has been so amazing and special and wonderful. And like Claire said, your energy is
beautiful,
infectious.
Oh, so thank you.
I hope people watching this can absorb some
Hopefully
of that
feel
and
it
be
too.
uplifted.
Thank you.
We'll let you get back to rehearsal.
Yes. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We really hope you enjoyed this episode of the 5-Minute Call.
Please follow or subscribe on your platform of choice, and don't forget to share this episode with all your stagey friends.
Your support really helps us bring you more amazing stories.
We love hearing your feedback on our guests. Your input really does help shape our content. You can leave us a rating or review wherever you get your podcasts.
And if there's a particular guest you would like us to have on the show, drop us a message on social media at 5-Minute Call to let us know.
If you are or have been affected by any of the topics discussed in this episode, please see the show notes below for some helpful resources.
We are in the heart of the West End, surrounded by so many incredible theatres, with amazing theatre makers putting on shows right this very moment.
Over the last year, we've been busy chatting to so many wonderful people who make theatre happen.
We are incredibly excited to announce that the 5 Minute Call is back in 2025 with new episodes dropping every single Monday. As the people that work in these theatres bring stories and music to life, we bring their stories to you.
From performers in shows like Hadestown,
Phantom of the Opera,
Wicked,
Les Mis,
Hamilton,
and Cabaret.
to behind the scenes with production managers, costumes, sound, and many more.
Members of the company, this is your 5-minute call. All beginners, please make your way to the stage.
From performers in shows like all of these ones. This one, and that one, and those ones, all of them.